Well, hello, Dr. Klein. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Brenda, for having me. I'm excited to be talking with you today.
I'm excited too. So, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of our conversation, I have a question for you, which is what
Mm,
is one thing you either did or did not do that has led you to your yes filled life?
mm. The very first time that I did this was listening to my intuition and walking through a fork in the road into the
Mm,
unknown without fear um, in that process.
amazing. Amazing.
Mm.
So many times I hear this, it's like just following the intuitive nudge. How did you know that it was intuition speaking?
Uh, it was just this solid knowing. I was in medical school and I was all set to do a family practice residency. And I did another OBGYN rotation just so I could do more because I loved it. When they let me deliver my first baby on my own, it was just this, I can't explain it. It was just, I knew with every cell in my body, this is what I'm meant to do. And I had to change everything to be able to do that. Yeah.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And as life sometimes does, it throws us, twists and turns,
Mhm.
and you pivoted again.
I have pivoted multiple times. That's why I said that was the first time. Yeah, it's not, I don't always listen to the nudges, it's still a learning process. But boy, when I do, it's amazing. There's no fear, there's no resistance. It's just, this is where I'm going. And if you want to join me, fine, but not, that's okay because I'm so clear on this. Yeah.
I love that. Have you always had that intuitive access, or was that something that came over time?
I think I've always had it, and truly, I think we're all born with it.
Hmm.
It is something that we all have, but as we exist in this current society, most of us are not encouraged to follow our intuition. So we learn to keep it quiet. And some people are actually really actively told not to use it. So I think we all have it, but it's a matter of fostering it and reconnecting so that we can trust it if we've lost that connection earlier on
Yeah,
in life.
absolutely. And that's what I teach too. Everybody has it. It's whether or not we're listening or we're recognizing how it's communicating, because there's so many different ways that it can come through.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that I love about human design is helping people understand their unique way. Some people it's the gut response, right? So
Hmm.
that's a very clear one. For some people, it's a really subtle process. And when people say listen to your gut, for some people, it's actually not your gut, it's something different. And so, but yeah, we all have it in different ways.
I love that you're bringing this up. So, in human design, what I know about it is that for some people, there is like a sacral authority, meaning they know within their body that something is a yes or a no. I happen to have an emotional authority, meaning
Ah,
it might be in my body, but it's going to take me more time to get there. Can you talk a little
yeah.
bit about those types of authority as they relate to human design?
Sure. In a sense, almost all of them are in the body. They're not in the mind. We're used to being told decisions are made through the mind, right? And that's how you're supposed to act. But the intuitive part and the decision making part comes through in different ways. So yes, the sacral is the most common, right? And that's the gut yes or no. And it's really clear. And for people who have that, and I think not just sacral, but all the different types, over time they figure it out usually. They
Hmm.
just don't necessarily have the confidence in it, right?
Yeah.
So with emotional, like I'm curious as to how you learned to experience that and recognize that, because that is a challenging one, all these waves of emotion and learning when's a good time to listen to that and when it's just your emotions playing and you just have to let them play out.
Well, I think it's still a work in progress. And it does come through in my body in the sense that I will feel different types of sensation, but I
Mm,
wouldn't have necessarily known that without doing the work that I do in somatics and in breath work and energy healing. I
yeah.
think what I would have said before I had any awareness is that some things felt good while other things felt bad.
Perfect.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the language I would have used. Now I know that I need to give myself a deadline of how long I'm going to allow myself to feel something through. So, and what I
Mhm.
mean by that is, let's say, for example, I'm looking at buying a course about something that I really want to learn, and it's a pretty heavy investment. I'm going to give myself a deadline of like a week. Let's feel this for a week. We're not going to
Mhm.
feel it for 6 months or 2 years or whatever,
Yeah.
because that can feel like indecision, and then we can get into energy
Mhm.
leaking because there's not a decision being made.
Mhm.
So I self monitor by giving myself a deadline. We're going to decide by this day. In fact, there was an action item on my to do list yesterday that said, decide this, yes or no.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. I think that's a really practical framework for people. So yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I love that
Yeah,
idea.
you're
Yeah, I
welcome.
think it's very
So
helpful.
for the listener that is like, okay, I've heard people talk about human design, but I have no idea what it really is. Could
Mm.
you tell us, like in your terms, what is
Yeah.
human design?
In a nutshell, to me, it is how we are energetically designed to be in this world. And for me, it's a really great a tool to get people connected to their energetics in a way they probably haven't thought about them before. On the technical level, it's a fairly new modality, but it combines a lot of ancient modalities. So astrology, the Kabbalah, the I Ching, and even in the chakra system, and it even does bring in the neutrino streams, which is quantum physics. So there is some modern science in there. Yeah, and it, again, it's a blueprint for our energy, and nobody that I work with, it's not like they don't know this, right? It's their soul on some level knows this, and it's just finding a different way to describe it to them so that they can reconnect and recognize, remember, oh yes, that's me. And then how do I use tools and strategies to help me navigate my natural self and way of being in a world that doesn't honor that, right?
Mm.
So
Yeah, you're describing my exact experience. So I am a manifesting generator. And
mhm,
when I learned about manifesting generators, I was like, oh, this is part of how I'm made, that I love to have multiple projects. I can
yep.
ideate like until the cows come home. I will never run out of ideas and new things to try. And there was a lot of my life that I felt like that was a liability, something to be ashamed of, that I
Mhm.
had so many ideas and I love to try all the different things. And when I started to learn about human design, I realized, oh, this is actually like my makeup. I am made to create and to have all these ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. And it gives you permission to be you
That's right.
in a world where we are not given that permission and, from other people. And then, of course, we don't give it to ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So can we talk about the types of
Yes.
let's talk about the types because I think there's so much information there. And then yeah, let's go. Let's just start wherever you want to start there.
Yeah, that's fine. And, I just want to introduce the idea that while we're talking about specific aspects of human design, everybody is unique. So, talk as we talk about the types, manifesting generator, you are a manifesting generator. You have your own unique expression of that. Yes, there are common denominators, but everyone has multiple layers that are
That's right.
unique, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we have the generators who are along with really the most common type. And the generator really goes through life as, as a worker bee in that they're like to be productive, like to have a purpose, and like to be committed to that purpose, right? I kind of think of them as the little engine that could,
Mm,
it takes them a little while to get going. It's not an instant, yes, but then once they get going, man, they'll just go forever as long as they're still aligned, right?
hmm.
Um, and then manifestors are the initiators. The manifestors are the people that they ignite fires under everybody else. They truly get things done. And it's a very quick energy, but they do have to have periods of rest. They don't have the endurance that the generators do. The manifesting generators, as you are a combination of the two. I think in the original human design, they didn't have manifesting generators, but it's well accepted that that is a type. And I find it's a difference. So they have the flexibility and the manifesting powers, but some stability with the sacral. So they do have the staying power to then see those projects through. And yes, manifesting generators are the multitaskers of the world. And when people say we're not meant to multitask, well, you are if you're a manifesting generator, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My partner's a manifesting generator, and when I shared with him his human design, it was just like, oh my gosh, I can be me. Oh, I'm off, and it really again gave him that permission. Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. Okay, got it. And then there's projectors. So the projectors are the guides, and projectors don't have that same level of consistent energy. So one of the keys for projectors is understanding that you're not necessarily here to be a doer all the time. You need to take things in waves and have downtime by yourself to be able to recharge. And then reflectors. Reflectors really are the barometer of the community that they're in. So as the name suggests, they reflect for people, what's actually going on. Not everybody is comfortable with that, but they really, they really provide us with a very penetrating observation of the truth of what's going on. And they also can be really good guides through that feedback. The reflectors have a very lightweight energy, very influenced by their environment and the people around them, and so really need a lot of space in nature and time alone. And while each type has its specific qualities, when we look at the makeup of their design, anybody who has a more open design, so more white or undefined centers in their design, is going to have some of those qualities of needing more time alone, needing to clear their energy more frequently, and have good energy practices.
So good. So are there some like famous personalities that you could liken some of these personality types with? Like, for example, I know that Teal Swan is a reflector. Are there other? I'm just curious if you, and it's
That's a good
okay if you
question.
don't.
Yeah, it is not something I really deal with regularly. When I was teaching this actually in a genomic certification program, I taught this to clinicians, and I did have examples. I think Barack Obama is a projector, but he's a very defined projector. He has a lot of definition. Has tried a lot of channels, a lot of centers defined. Sandra Bullock is a reflector. Let's see. George Bush, the younger one, is a generator. And I'm trying to think. Oh, some of the famous musicians. Yeah, I'm blanking on manifesting generators.
If it comes up in our conversation, you can
Yeah,
feel free to bring that. I love that
yeah,
because you sort of get a picture of oh, it's that personality kind of. And of course, again,
yeah, kind of.
every human
Mm,
is unique, and
mm,
so we don't want to put anybody into boxes, but it just kind of gives you an idea. I'm
yeah.
curious, what type are you?
I am a projector.
Okay, I wondered. I
I am
wondered.
a projector, and like you, when I think it was probably 15 years ago that I was introduced to it, and when I was introduced to it, it was just like, oh, that's me. Oh, thank God. Oh, okay. I can let go of all this, right? Yeah, it was completely transformative. It was that moment of self-recognition that, and projectors have to be invited in order to participate. And so recognition is one of the thorns in our side as well as the gifts. And yeah, so it was a huge turning point for me.
That's so good. That's so good. I wondered because I feel a certain thing in my body when I'm interacting and communicating with the projector.
Oh,
There's like just a slight more focus to my energy in my sacral. I can just feel it. It feels like warmth or tingles.
mhm.
And
I
so,
love that. You
yeah,
do know that that is the energetic interaction, right?
no,
Because yes, that
I
is
didn't know
that
that.
you just perfectly described the energetic interaction that happens between a manifesting generator or even a generator and a projector. Because we provide, we're very focused, very deep, and so when we're talking with somebody, it is an absolute 100% focus, and it helps to focus your energy. And this is all unconscious. This is an
Hmm.
energetic
Hmm.
thing. So, oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
That's very cool. It's
Yeah.
very cool. How can somebody go about, like, how do you recommend people go about determining what is their human design type? Do you have
Mhm.
a way that you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of free, software out there. I have one on my website. There's several places you can get a free, graphic and description of your design, and so you can at least learn some of the terms that you are. To me, that is a starting point. But as with everything, that we do, information is only the starting point. And to me, everybody goes at a different pace. But then beyond that, you can look at books. You can my mentor, Shaitan Parkin, I think has a wonderful series of books. Obviously, there are other people. Karen Curry has some wonderful books. So there's some great uh, people at the top of human design that you can learn from. And then working with somebody to dive deeper into how do you integrate all these parts. I find that that's the hardest challenge, is how do I live this? You can only live by doing. And
Hmm.
then periodically I find it helpful to have a guide to say, oh, that's the missing piece, right? Or this is how you can do that. So I'd say start with your free chart, and then dive in as fast and as deep as you want to go from there, depending on how you best learn.
Oh, I love that answer. I love that. I think it's so interesting when we start digging into whether it's astrology or human design, how you can find little pieces and parts that sort of ring true. And then also sometimes you'll find those parts that maybe you think, well, I don't know if I feel that
Mhm.
way about myself. And when you're talking about the open and closed,
Mm.
when I first looked at the human design chart, I was like, this looks like a very weird cello body. I don't understand what it is.
I
Can
love
you?
it. I'm a cellist, so I love that analogy.
Of course, you're a cellist. I used to be a choir director. I was a
Oh
choral
my
music
goodness.
educator for 26 years. So
Oh my
I
goodness.
tend to attract a lot of musicians, and it's completely subconscious.
That is
So,
so
of
interesting. I
course, you're
love
a cellist.
that. Yeah, yeah. So the body graph, which is what we primarily go by. The full chart is fascinating because you can see the I Ching and the astrology, all in it. But the body graph is really what we're talking about, and that is the imprint of the neutrino stream at the time of birth, plus 3 months before birth. So there's two calculations. There's the conscious and then the unconscious, and how they activate the gates then determines the definition in your chart, which is what are those colored areas. And centers are one of the best ways to sort of experiment with your design. I think it's fairly easy. There's 9 centers, and depending on whether that center is defined, which means it's fairly active consistently in your energy field, or whether it's undefined, which means you're really open to interacting and gathering wisdom from all your different interactions. That can really help you in a very quick way say, where am I in balance? Where am I out of balance? Where am I taking on people's energy that's not mine?
Mhm.
And so I find that a really good place to start once you get past the type, the profile, and the authority.
I love that. Are there consistent ways that you recognize that someone has taken on energy that's not yours, or can it vary?
It can vary. There are some things that are kind of key points for each center. The self center, or some people call it the G center, is one. We're told you have to know who you are, where you're going, what you want, and all that. Well, people who have that self-centered defined do have a very clear sense of who they are and where they're going in life. There are nuances to that, but that's in general. So somebody who has a defined self-center, if they find themselves kind of wandering and lost and really going, well, I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know where I'm going. That's a sign that you've gotten off center, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, in contrast, somebody who has that undefined is here to play all sorts of different roles. They're an actor in the game of life. They're not here to have a consistent sense of self or a consistent direction. It's much more dependent on who they're with. So their sense of who they are is going to be different if they're, with one certain group or another group, and they're very much influenced by that. Same
That is
thing with their life
so
direction.
important because for the person who thinks there's something wrong with me because
Yeah.
I'm changing from group to group to group, that may not actually be the case. It might be
Right.
how you're made.
Correct. And I find that, especially some key points like this, where our society is just pretty rigid in saying this is how you're supposed to be. For me, it's also helped with my parenting, understanding my child is going to be different. It's going to seem like a different person, or my friend or my partner, when they've come back from this group of people, right? When they've come
Yes.
back from this experience, and you can look at them like, who are you? They are the same person, but they've just been immersed in this new experience, and they need, to integrate it, and they probably still have traces of that when they come back. So I think it'd be really helpful for both us as individuals and also in relationship, because we're all in relationship for our
That's
lives, right?
right. And it
Um,
feels like for me, if I had to sum up relationship, it's really the curriculum of how to be human. Like that's what I
Absolutely.
find like so much growth happening in all
Mm,
of my relationships, whether
mhm.
it's professional or personal or family. Like that's where I'm growing consistently is,
I
is
don't think we can
yeah.
go in a vacuum, right? Yes, we do our own work, but then you don't know how it's working. You have to go out in the world and interact so that you can have mirrors and you can have interactions that help you grow. Absolutely, yeah, complete
Yeah.
agreement.
So when I learned about human design, I just sent the link that I had to my daughter and I was like, "Hey, check this out." And so you need your birthplace and your birth date, and it's
Mhm.
helpful if you have birth time as well, right?
Yes, if I've worked with some people who had a few hours of a window, and so we'll go through and try and pinpoint it. I think if you really don't know your birth time, um, I will often actually send them to a astrologer who does rectification first.
Oh, tell me more
Yeah.
about that. What is that?
So there are astrologers who do specialize in rectification. So they can look at life events based on planetary transits, as well as a natal chart. So they can really dive in. And in my experience, when we're really not sure at all, I have found that to be really helpful.
This is so important. So when I was a teacher, I spent I think 13 or 15 years in Title I schools serving immigrants and refugees. And the vast majority of refugees have 1/1 as their birthday because people don't know.
Oh my
In
goodness.
so many cultures in the world, they don't
Wow.
track birthdays in the same way we do
Mm-hmm.
in the West. And so for those people who might be listening or maybe might know
Mm.
somebody who has that 1/1 date and it was just like put there by default, this
Yeah.
astrology, you called it a rectification.
Rectification. Yeah.
Rectification. This
Rectification.
so cool. Thank you. I didn't even
Yeah.
know that existed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is what I love. There's so many different ways to approach our energetics, our spirituality. And I can't do them all. There's no way. And so I love connecting with people who offer different ways. I love astrology. I work with astrologers. I follow astrology. I don't call myself an astrologer, but it does inform what I do. And so yeah, I think there's so much out there, and it's good.
Like you, I follow astrology and I follow astrologers and I'm aware that I'm heavily influenced and impacted by it. I don't identify as an expert
Yeah.
in astrology.
I mean, in some ways, I think I don't identify as an expert in anything. I just say, well, this is what I'd like to do. And I guess I do have expertise in it, but goodness, there's always more learning to do.
Oh my gosh, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So, when my daughter discovered her human design,
Mm,
she felt an even bigger sense of relief than I had felt. Like I was like, "Oh my gosh, now I know myself." But she was in high school at the time or
mm,
had just finished high school and was feeling really unsuccessful because by
mm,
traditional standards, she was not doing the things that people wanted her to do. And when she got her human design, she felt that same sense of like, oh my gosh, this is how I'm made. And
mm,
it freed her to get curious around what would feel really good. And it literally
mm.
changed the choices that she made. And she let herself off the hook of things that she did not want to do that were not bringing her joy so that she could find the things that are actually bringing her joy.
Oh, I love that. And I just want to say kudos to you as a mom. Obviously, we always want to do our best for the kids and
Mm,
um, giving her the gift of not only saying you can be yourself, but really giving her tools and supporting her in utilizing those tools to follow her own path. So thank you.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
kudos.
you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I received that. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a really interesting journey because I come from a family of educators. And
Mm,
education was first and foremost in everybody's mind, including mine, because I spent so many years in education. And so when her path led her in a different direction, it caused an identity shift in me. And so that took an interesting um, truth telling about what is actually my identity. Does it really relate to academics and academic success? Or is there something different? And so her process actually helped me find freedom.
I love that. And so that's how you ended up going upon a different path. I take it and
It was
ending up
kind
where
of
you were. Is it
simultaneously. Yeah, it was
okay?
sort of like, oh, well, if she's going to do that, I kind of have courage to do what I want to do and we're going to go do our thing together. I mean,
I
you
love
know,
that. What
it,
no, and I oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful description of a mother-daughter relationship that is healthy and evolving and willing to be vulnerable and strong, as you both teach each other. Right?
thank you. Yeah, we are
Mm.
the Gilmore Girls in human form.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, it was
I
just
love
her
that.
and me from the time she was 5 and she's
Wow.
23. So
Wow.
we've had a beautiful journey and still get together once a week just for the sake of it, of having fun.
Wow. Wow. So is she in Portland also? Is she
Yeah,
in Oregon?
she
Okay.
is. Yep, she's out on her
Okay.
own doing big grown-up stuff, managing places and like she's very
Wow.
successful and it's really cool to watch.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That is just wonderful. Yeah, my girls are both they've both been introduced to their designs and their astrology and they use it as needed. But I think it also has helped them embrace who they are. And I think like so many tools, we don't live it 24/7. We fall back into old habits. We get off track. And what I love is it's just, oh, wait a minute. I'm off. Wait a minute. Let me go back to my like let me go back. And it's amazing what pops out at you that you need at that moment, right? Something you didn't, oh, I didn't see that before. Oh, and it helps you go, oh, got it. Okay. Now
Yeah.
let me get back on track.
I love that you're bringing up the idea that we don't have to be perfect all the time.
Oh gosh,
And and I think that's so forgotten in
no.
our society. Like we sort of think, I'm
Yeah.
never going to get off course. I'm never going to get off track. But the truth is for me, I'm getting back on track every day. Like that's my
Yes.
day is to come back to center every day
Hmm.
again and again and again.
Hmm. It's reset resilience, right? And that is something that I work with on, all levels. And I think one of the challenges sometimes in the spiritual world is that we think, okay, I'm here for these lessons and this is how I'm designed and I need to get it right. And I'm, and there is a perfectionism that can be taken from that. And I think that that is something I really try to help people let go.
Yeah.
Because it does us all a disservice. We are each here on a spiritual journey. Our soul has lessons. And I don't care whether you follow your design to the T, you're still going to have lessons that you are here to learn. So it's not like it guarantees you a, happy, pleasant, free life. It just helps you navigate in a way that is more authentic to you. Um, and that is, I think, one of my biggest hopes that people take away uh, is that just be ourselves, and whatever it is we need to support us in that process,
I
that's
really love that
okay.
approach. And I love that you named that there can be a perfectionistic approach to the healing and spiritual work that people
Yeah.
do. I often say to my clients, let's not high achieve our healing.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. Oh, yes.
Well, I teach what I most need to know. So,
Mm,
I was the original high achiever. And so when I
mm,
came into healing work, I was like, well, if a little's good, a ton must be even better. And then I
right.
looked at like there was so far out of balance.
And okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, I'm going to do that. And for me, coming from medicine, where there has to be a certain amount of perfection, right? There is not a lot of room for error.
Right.
And then going into the energetic work and then the more spiritual work, that was the hard transition. It felt like home. And yet
Hmm.
it was a hard transition to let go of, but how do I prove that? How do I verify that? How do I validate that?
Right. Right. So I work with a lot of physicians and physician assistants and nurse practitioners. And the thing I hear is I want to step into my gifts.
Yeah.
And so, can you talk a little bit about what that transition was like for you, stepping
Mm.
outside of traditional medicine, whether it was clinical or were you a clinician or a hospitalist or
Yes,
both?
no, I was an OBGYN physician for 15 years. Yeah. Yeah. And I just somewhere along the way, I was like, I missed an exit. I'm not supposed to be here. Like there was just a knowing and I couldn't figure out how to get back on track. So I had a shoulder injury, which was the universe's, I had missed all the nudges, all the red flags. So that
Mm,
was my 2x4. And
mhm.
I got into the energy medicine because I was trying to do my own healing. I knew I needed to do something different. And that was an example of following my intuition. And I just, my then husband said, "You're crazy." I said, "No, I don't care. This is a 2-year program. I'm enrolling. I'm doing this. I don't care." And again, it was this coming home like, oh, this feels so wonderful. And
Mhm.
yet, oh, the curriculum, okay, the healing, I have to get this right, and I have to be the best in the class, And well, I think there is a certain part of that is my design, but it's learning to do that with humility and less than perfection. And it's
Mhm.
still an ongoing journey.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I identify as a
yeah.
recovering perfectionist because
Yeah.
as a musician, and you might relate to
Yeah.
this, as a musician, there's no place for B plus work. It has to
Yes.
be perfect.
Yes.
And so I was proudly a perfectionist for decades until I realized the cost it was having on my relationships, my health, my self-concept, and my inner dialogue. And then I
Oh,
realized
yes.
I'm going to need to do this differently.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you find that as you started, letting go some of that, giving yourself permission, did you find it easier to open up and receive help from others?
Yes, there was a direct correlation
Mm.
because in the height of my perfectionism, I had to do it all, carry it all, ideate it all, execute it all because it all had to be done perfectly and no one could do it as well as I could.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. I love
So
that.
as you were coming into this work, this
Mm,
energetic spiritual work, and you're leaving behind a whole career
mm,
of very data driven, analytical, science based work. I know that there's a ton of science in the human design. And so I don't want to leave the idea that
Yes
there's
and
not,
no. And I
but
answer that as a scientist, there, yes, I have.
yeah. So how did you navigate going from something very, very structured
Mm,
to something with a little bit more flow and less structure?
mhm. I think two things. One, my work as an OBGYN was actually very intuitive.
Hmm.
I have been a midwife. I have done this in multiple lifetimes. So there was a huge element of intuitive knowing in that work, even though I don't think I consciously acknowledge it. But
Hmm.
so I'd already been working in that field. And then when I left and I was out of work for about 2 years to heal my shoulder, and then opened up a holistic women's health practice. And so I combined the two, the energy medicine and the women's health. I wasn't doing obstetrics, but more just the regular women's health. And then, that's how I got into DNA, and that's how I got into human design. So to me, I don't look at it as so much well, this is spiritual, this is science. It's more, how do I help people get the answers that they need to move forward in their life in a way that makes sense? And so I'm just looking for answers. And I'm certainly guided by the universe, what presents itself to me, and my own intuition. And I try to be open, but also be discerning using my own barometer. And it doesn't mean things are right or wrong. It's just what feels right for me to use, right? What resonates. And so it's still a work in progress to integrate them as all equal ways of helping people to heal, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and sometimes, the science is really something that where they really need that support. Sometimes it's more in the energetics, the spirituality. And I think part of what I love about speaking to people like you and others to help bridge those divides that are very artificial.
They are. They are very artificial.
Mhm.
I found that too. So, coming from education, everything is very data based. I don't know if people know how data driven education is, but it's
I
a
think so.
lot of tracking and analyzing and assessing and formative assessments and summative assessments. And there's this whole behind the scenes world that's happening in education that is only data. And so I came from this world of
Wow.
having to prove everything and
Wow.
justify everything. Like, for example, even if we wanted to refer someone for additional support for a learning challenge, it would take up to 5 months of data collection and, really collecting
Oh
that
my
data
gosh.
and then assessing it and then picking it
Oh.
apart and all the things. And so as I moved from that work into this work, and it was a more gradual process because I was part-time in this work as I was full-time in
Mm.
education. So it
Wow.
was it was kind of like braiding. And then I
Oh,
took the full leap in 2022 and went full-time in this work only and left that
wow.
work behind.
Wow.
And it was at that point I was realizing, oh, I'm justifying. I'm using the science and the data to justify. And that energy is very different from coming in with a, I know this to be true energy.
Yes. 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 So how did you make that switch?
It was an awareness of the reason that I was sharing the
Mm,
science. So when I became aware, I'm sharing this to justify, to convince you, then I
mm.
was like, oh, wait, that's actually not what I want to do. I don't want to convert anybody. I want to preach to the converted.
Exactly. I extend the invitation, and if it resonates, I welcome you in. If it doesn't, that is okay. And yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you that there is no making people do anything, especially in this work.
That's absolutely true. I want to make sure that I ask you about how people can connect with you. How do they find you? And
Yes.
I know you also have a gift for us.
I do, yes. So the best way to find me is on my website, which is bobbiklinemd.com. And that's BOBBIKLINEMD.com. You can get a free human design report. You can just run your chart for free, but you can also get a free report that really gives you a lot of information about the basics about your design. And I think that's a great place to start.
Amazing. Go start there, especially if you've never done your human design, or if you want your human design chart to more reflect this conversation between Dr.
Mhm.
Kline and me. Go grab that. It's a free resource
Yeah.
and get connected. And it really has created a sense of peace for me about me. And so I hope that it can do the same for everyone.
Yeah, me too. That is why I do this work.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
I have one last super random, perhaps weird question. I have heard from one person that you could do human design on your business.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Can we
Yes.
talk about that for a second?
Oh,
Because
yeah, yeah.
I actually, one of the apps, I downloaded what my business's
I
human design was,
yes,
and it was fascinating to see the differences between how my business functioned and how I
yes.
function.
Yes. So you can do it for your business. And for people who are really solopreneurs who don't have an incorporated business, use your individual design. But if you do have an incorporated business, an official business, then just look at what is the date that you incorporated it. And then you run that for the design, and that is the design of your business. So you can read it in essence, as you read yourself. I mean, if I'm looking at business, there are things I interpret a little differently. I look things a little bit differently, but it gives you a good sense of how your business is designed to run. Now, when you're a solopreneur, you're often one and the same. And so it can feel like a merging of energies, but it does have its own distinct energy. And so what you can do is same thing as when you look at a relationship chart, you look at your individual chart, understand that, look at your design of your business and understand that, and then look at how they come together to understand where our unique challenges and gifts from that interaction.
That's so good. Fascinating.
Yeah, yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, so you can go get your human design, go get your business's human design, and then Dr. Klein can help you merge the two.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so
Yes.
much for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful conversation.
It
I
has
could talk
been,
to you all day.
I know it feels really, really easy and good. Is there anything else that you think our listeners should know before we close?
I just think you know, it's all about being yourself, living your own path, and whatever supports you need along the way that resonate with you, that's where you
Oh, words to live by right there.
go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Take care.